Guilty Gear Strive Season 4.2 is the final version of the game before we get the major update, Strive 2.0. And this is my tier list for this patch. Unlike most tier lists with rankings from S to D, I rate characters personally based on how I think they could perform at like large events. And this is not to say that there are not characters that could swing above their pay grade. In fact, in this patch, it's probably the most often this thing can happen. And as you go down this list, you will find examples of characters that have performed quite well this year. This patch is a further balanced patch to the previous patch, 4.1, which was in response to player complaints about the initial Season 4.0 launch between some characters being honestly just too good and the patch feeling kind of rushed and feeling really buggy. So to be honest, normally I would discuss characters that moved first, as usually in these patches there's not a ton of movement, but when I compared this tier list to the last one I posted at the end of 4.1, I feel that I've changed my opinion about where the characters are so much that we're just going to go from the bottom up. The main thing you need to understand going into looking at my opinions of the characters in the game is that the power level of the game has been reduced quite a bit. So not just because of nerfs to characters, of which there are plenty, but also because of two very major and very clear system changes, and then one much more subtle change that has affected the game by quite a bit. So the first very big system change that they made in this patch was the nerfs to Wild Assault, but the important ones for sure are the changes to White Wild Assault and Red Wild Assault. To White Wild Assault, the big change here is that it can no longer be Roman cancelled. White Wild Assault is also disadvantageous on block, so once you use it, if it is blocked, they have to give up their turn. This makes it a much more costly yet still strong option to use in neutral. And I think it really puts White Wild Assault as truly an anti-zoning tool. Now, Red Wild Assault has a change where it is no longer cancelable on block. It is still cancelable on hit, but this has a few big effects on the characters that have it. So for starters, block string offense is just less oppressive on these characters. Everyone has the same Gatlings generally in this game. So for example, Kai has jab into 6k and also Baiken has jab into 6k. So the difference is really what options people have offset Gatlings. Now, the threat of Red Wild Assault made it so that it was actually really hard to reverse off certain situations and could lengthen people's offense. Another effect of this Red Wild Assault nerf is that resource cycling got weaker for the characters that had it. So previously, a character like Sid could use a bunch of resource and then use Red Wild Assault to actually stall to get the resource back. But because of the change, he is not as good at doing it as before. And Wild Assault is very standout because you have burst from round start, from round 1. So they had these options immediately. The third and final effect is that characters with Red Wild Assault were not as good at going from neutral to offense as they were before because of this change. This one is a bit more character specific to be fair, but not being able to cancel Red Wild Assault means that a character's options off far slashes or far pokes in general can be weaker and have more counterplay. People really celebrated these changes actually because Wild Assault is looked at as the mechanic that changed how the game was played since, essentially. And I can admit, I do see the vision on why they add this mechanic in the first place. It helps open up options, it helps with consistency, and it adds a new element of resource management to the game. But I think this version of Wild Assault is much more healthy because it restricts what you can do in some situations. Now, the other major change of this version is the change to Super PRC. And this is a technique that's existed in the game since launch. So previously, when you did a super, you could cancel the startup with PRC and have the invincibility carry over. While somewhat difficult to perform with faster reversal supers, ones with long startup like Testament or Faust really benefited from this. Once upon a time, Potemkin's Gigantor Kai was invincible on startup, but they moved that to Heavenly Potemkin Buster. And with Super PRC, it greatly improved his defense with meter. So they made it so you can't do this anymore. And while it's cool that Ram can't do it anymore, especially as the Paleo base eventually added this to their kit, major emphasis on eventually, like previous changes of this type, other characters unfortunately got caught in the crossfire, like the aforementioned Testament and Faust. But really, also any character with a slower startup super. Just like when DPRC got removed, and Baiken took a stray from that. Faust players and other characters like him rightfully hit the "what did you say fuck me for?" Now, more subtle is the change to risk and how that affected the game. For brevity's sake, risk is that meter right under the burst, and it is the game's guard gauge. Damage calculation is different now compared to before, because risk is a separate modifier from damage, as opposed to before when it affected combo scaling directly. A couple months ago, I asked on Twitter how people felt this change affected their character, because I felt like people weren't really talking about it very much, and pretty much one person from every character player base said that the risk change affected their damage and they felt like their damage was lower than before. Meaning that there was a general feel that the average damage in the game straight up is lower compared to before. So you're going to hear me talking about these 3 changes in regards to all the characters in different ways, but these 3 changes are the reason why some characters didn't actually get directly changed. So with that out of the way, we are going to start reviewing the characters on the tier list, and we're going to start from the bottom with a character that many players believe to be the worst character in the game right now, Faust. Faust is an item throw character, so when he throws 236p, he will randomly throw an item. Some of these items benefit him greatly, like Mini Faust. Others can be interacted with in different ways, so how you could pick up the trumpet and use it against him, for example, or how the opponent can also hit the bomb. His mid-range is quite good. He has 2p, which is a huge low, a huge far slash, a goated backwalk. Like, for real, look at how fast he travels backwards. And he even has the ability to crawl under mid attacks despite his height. He also has an extremely rewarding command grab, leading into powerful 50-50 setups. And he can even 50-50 you from full screen in some scenarios. That being said, he has some pretty big flaws. So for starters, he really struggles on defense. The 2p I mentioned before is really good, but it's slow for punch button at 7 frames and generally does not convert into something unless he has meter. And even on hit, he tends to be even or slightly disadvantaged. They also nerfed one of his main neutral tools, the drill that he uses to attack enemy lows, which makes it generally a disadvantageous situation as well. Now, I think the lower power level of the game does favor him, but he also got whacked by the nerf to Super PRC, making his reversal super pretty bad. He actually got a buff that makes his far slash have less pushback, and this lets him convert into 2H far more consistently, despite it still being possible. But his far slash is slow startup, so he's not actually that good at whip punishing people. Overall, I think he relies a bit more on luck compared to before, and when he gets cornered, he's in a really tough spot for actually escaping. Venom is a set play zoning type character, and he has the ability to set pool balls on screen and hit these balls, and they move independently of him. The balls can be used for neutral, high-powered offense, and tricky looping mix-ups. He has big mid-screen pokes like far slash and 2S, and because he's doing so much stuff, he builds meter pretty quickly. He can spend this meter on either covering himself on strike throw, or he can spend it on his signature super, Dark Angel, and he can use his super for both corner push and mix-ups. In this patch, Venom actually got a massive list of buffs and changes, as he was generally thought to be the worst character in the game in the previous patch. Now, Venom to me is a case of we've been here before. A character that's released that's been considered kind of weak from release, and then he gets a huge list of changes that, I mean, they do stuff. Like, he is better than he was before, but it's just not enough. This character has a few important weaknesses. So, like Faust, his defense is kind of poor, but it might actually be a surprise considering that, truthfully, he has a top class 2p, it's huge, it's mashable, and you can confirm it into a full screen knockdown. And he's a zoner, so he actually really likes this. But outside of this, he has average-ish everything else. So, an average 2k, an average backdash, and no reversal super whatsoever. He dies quickly too, which is rough in this game. He definitely does more damage now, which is great compared to before. In the previous patch, his damage was actually pretty low outside of a couple specific situations. And both his mix-up and his strike throw between the vacuum on 6k or 5k being better than Kai's for whatever reason, along with reward on the command grab, is pretty good. A big pain point of this character is that the balls don't hit extended hurt boxes, so there could be situations like this where it looks like the ball should hit them, but it doesn't. And I feel like this makes counterplay to what he does more linear than you would think. Next up is Zato, and Zato is a set play zoning character. He is also the game's main puppet character. He has the ability to summon a shadow, Eddie, and he can be used for neutral combos, and offense. Zato can maneuver Eddie around the screen a couple of ways. So he could just straight up move the character, or he can use special moves like Drunk Crochet to put Eddie behind the opponent, or he can use his new move, Float, and send Eddie far away like this. He has best in class mix-ups because of Eddie, a great 6P, a pretty good 2S, jump buttons all around with things like Jump P and Jump H, a cross up in JS, and the ability to stall with Flight. His damage can be pretty good too, and because of Eddie, he can actually make combos burst safe pretty easily. Zato is also one of the first characters to really abuse both wall stomp and, more importantly to today's game, positive bonus to loop offense and manage his Eddie gauge. Now, despite all of these strengths, he has a slew of weaknesses. For starters, his conversion ability without Eddie is not that great. In fact, watching Zato players mash on jab and get nothing, or purposely pick to mash 2k on defense, is what made me cool with Baiken mashing jab and sometimes getting nothing. His flight is also amazing, but it comes at a pretty big cost, which is he doesn't have a standard air dash. Instead, it's flight. And he also does not have a double jump, as you press up again in the air or up and dash to fly. This can make defense pretty hard. Like Venom, he does not have a reversal super to speak of at all. And unlike Venom, he has to use 2k far more often to convert mashing into big reward, which is risky because it's slower. Like Venom and Faust, he takes a ton of damage when he gets hit. The new move, Float, is apparently good for combos. It's probably one of the main responses I got to the video I made about the move. But generally, it is seen as one of, if not the worst new special move a launch character has gotten. He also has other really bad, useless adjacent moves like his 6k. Finally, and this also applies to the previous characters we talked about, he needs to set up his good thing, where many good characters don't. So his matchups are pretty defined by how liberally he can do that. And in the current game, it's not that easy to do. Next up, we have the newest addition to the game, Lucy. Lucy is a fast mid-range character. She is very fast actually, and she has top class pokes like a very good, huge 5k, huge range on far slash, an active 2S to catch backdashes and poke with. When she has access to 50 meter, she gets access to Quick Hack, and it has a bunch of options available to it, but essentially it is a damage super. Combined with her status-inducing effect that stuns her opponent if she hits him with a monowire, and throw is included in this. All in all, she's a character that's focused at keeping the opponent at bay at her own pace until she gets the resources to do a ton of damage. She also has some important weaknesses that affects her placement on this tier list. So for example, here is a combo where she reapplies the stain at the end of the combo, and this is actually pretty rare and hard to do. This is like a really ideal situation I just showed, and realistically she just doesn't get it a lot, so she's not actually that good at looping her game plan. Also because of this, her damage output is tied to her opponent's burst, because typically the character doesn't do a lot of damage. She needs a good hit, or she needs the nerve state in order to do a bunch of damage, or she needs meter to do a bunch of damage. So a wise opponent will not burst this type of hit. Rather, they will burst this type of hit, one where she actually gets something major. Her monowire attack, which is the way that she applies the nerve state, does not actually have a variable release until she gets to the point where she can apply the guard crush. This means that the opponent has various ways of dealing with the charge on reaction. And this also applies to her follow-up normals. She actually can't delay these normals by that much, and this is a general rule of the game for follow-up normals on these buttons. So the opponent can use passive defense to really make this annoying for her to use, and can even get a punish for doing so. Also, for a fast character, her mix-up is not that great. So for example, she's not very good at using fast RC to do high lows. Like other characters in this group, she also has a low life pool. And finally, despite being such a fast character, it feels like Arxis were a little wishy-washy. Like they couldn't make up their mind if she should be a character that runs up to here and threatens you, or a character that could play it at every single range. And they gave her this projectile, which does basically nothing on hit at all to somebody, and can easily be crouched. Really, it's trash. Now, Testament is more of a traditional mid-range zoning character, so Testament's actual moving speed is not that fast, but their ability to act is fast. They have fast, low-profile 2K, a faster than average backdash, along with a massive 6P, and excellent mid-range pokes like Far Slash and 2H. The main flow of the match for this character goes something like this. They throw a projectile, and that sets a succubus that just kind of hangs out there. And when this is on the screen, Testament has another projectile that will track to that succubus. If the opponent blocks the crow, a status effect is applied, so when Testament swings at the opponent, a follow-up attack automatically activates. Now, this makes it so that Testament can do combos that they would not normally be able to do under normal circumstances, on top of making pokes far more advantageous than before, and also giving the character a combo throw. So one of the main nerfs that Testament got was to the aforementioned super PRC from the beginning of the video, where they have this super, but they're no longer able to cancel the startup with 50 meter. So now they need 100 meter to do this action, which is not that common to get. But you knew about the Super PRC change because you've been watching the video since the beginning, right? Besides this, the general vibe of Testament is that their game plan is too slow because there are all these steps to execute it. You have to throw the projectile, then you have to get the throw, then you have to do something to hit them, and then you pull up. Even with this extra advantage, Testament is not that great at creating strong offensive situations from them or from neutral. Usually the best that Testament gets to do is that they kind of just loop the situation to the best of their ability. Now, don't get me wrong, this is good though, because it does build quite a bit of meter for Testament as they keep pushing their turn over and over. The opponent doesn't do anything about it. And the character's strike throw in Stain is very good because of the combo throw and the fast wall break, along with the shimmy being so plus on block. Their placement in this tier is more a result of other characters' strengths rather than flaws of the character itself. Finally, to round out this rank, we have JackO. JackO is a set play zoner who's focused on summoning minions. She can throw them, hit them, and tell them to do stuff like attack or defend. The minions are a powerful tool that can straight up be used for outie zoning, straight up zoning, offense, you name it. With meter, she can power them up one of two ways. She can either do an attack cheer, which basically gives her no restriction on actions for a while. I say a while, but it has been nerfed greatly since her release, and the duration is actually quite short. Or she could do one that ups their defense and essentially makes them impossible to kill unless you use something like a super. And as the armor is so good, it can be system mechanics or can be used as something to use to mash on defense. She combines this with a similar suite of tools to Testament: a top class low profile 2K, a fast backdash, and an admittedly meh super. JackO has a few problems that lends her to be considered weaker than previous versions of her. For starters, her combo game is considered to be much more inconsistent than it was in the past, though JackO mains do their best around this thing. She does feel the risk change in a big way, since that was her main way of increasing damage in the past, as she has long extended pressure strings in the corner with the minions. She again struggles on defense. 2K is amazing, but if the opponent is outside of that range, it could be hard for her to escape with her kind of meh dash jump and far slash. Like other set play zoners in this rank, she's very reliant on setting something up first before being able to start her game plan. And to be fair, the minion pool is very fast, but she's vulnerable while doing it. And she does have ways of getting around counterattacks, and how people deal with this will depend on their character. Like other characters in this rank, she also dies kind of quickly. So next, we have the top 16 rank. This rank, despite how it appears, is the mid-tier of this game in my opinion. And depending on who you talk to, the characters in this rank are either greatly underrated or overrated. And I think it's a pretty good sign actually of how well they are balanced overall. This rank and the next rank, the top 8 rank, are the ideal balance for the game. We begin with Dizzy. And Dizzy is a weird character, so she appears to be a set play zoner, but she has a move that makes her kind of unusual, which is this Yu-Gi-Oh! Field spell she has, the Ice Field. And this gets characters slipping and sliding on the ice. Now, how a character fares on the ice is a major factor into their matchup with Dizzy. And as one could guess, Dizzy is quite good with her own mechanic, as she gets better pressure in the meter build, in addition to getting unique defense that she would not normally get. Frame data does work differently when you're slipping and sliding on the ice. Outside of this field spell, she's a pretty typical 2-step zoner in this game. She could summon fish that advance like before, and she has a fire dagger that tracks, on top of her ice spikes being majorly buffed. These moves are incredibly active now. Another move that kind of makes her hard to define as a character is her new move in Guilty Gear Strive, the Wings of Light. Now, with this move, after 10 seconds, she exchanges meter for unblockable damage. And here, it looks like it takes a while, but depending on how much meter you have, it could do a significant amount of damage. And this is going to sound kind of silly too, but it makes things that do a little bit of damage all of a sudden do quite a bit of damage. You also note with this move how long the animation of some of the things that she does actually is, like her throw, for example. So this gives Dizzy multiple ways of trying to build meter and trying to win games. So hitting you full screen and then setting up ice to zone you with is cool, but also using Blue Water Assault to set up strike throw is also a pretty good idea too. She pairs these unique abilities with good range, good speed, and good meter build because she does a lot of special moves. But she is not without downsides, however. Like many of the characters we've discussed already, her defense is not that great. So she has a decent button for mashing in 2P, especially its size, but it's pretty hard to convert out of. If you do a couple of 2Ps, your 6P won't reach, and once the opponent has a small amount of distance on you, it's pretty difficult to actually hit confirm into something that means something, due to requiring setup. Fast characters or other characters with strong projectiles can stop her from doing so. Many of her attacks have a long total duration as well, so if you can navigate around this somehow, then she's quite vulnerable. Another really important thing in this game is resource. While this is a kind of simple example, some of her combo routes actually give the opponent a ton of resources on hit. There are also some characters that have high life totals, so paired with this, it can really hurt to give your opponent a lot of resources to use against you. Overall though, I do think she's come a long way in this game since her release, and she definitely stands out as a pretty unique character. The next character I want to talk about is Bedman. Bedman is a mid-range zoning type character. He has a lot of strong, unique tools. So for starters, his jump. He can float, and he has 8-way movement. Combine this with strong air attacks like his JS, which vacuums the opponent in, or his JH, which is overhead for the entirety of the duration of the attack, and even a cheeky JD bed slam that he can use both as a cross-up or as a sneaky little overhead. At the beginning of Season 4, he got a massive HP increase, and now is one of the most tanky characters in the entire game. The zoning part of his game comes from a combination of his jump and his fireball. It's pretty fast, and it has an automatic follow-up, and the automatic follow-up actually has some light tracking, which makes it so that he can follow the projectile and implicitly makes him quite advantageous. In fact, all of his special moves have an automatic follow-up. He can upgrade his special move follow-ups with a super, his install super, and his special move follow-ups become supers, which is pretty good. A lot of his game is around RPS around his advantage, and if he is correct, he can push meter build and his turn, which includes repeating the situation or mix-ups. To top it off, he has white Wild Assault in case neutral is feeling a little stuffy. He does have some problems, however. It might sound funny, but he himself is just big, and like Zato, he does not have a double jump because he has special movement. So especially with his back to the wall, it could be really suffocating for him to try to escape the corner. He does have a 6-frame invincible backdash, which is good, but it's slower than other characters' backdash, so you can usually react to it. He also has a slow reversal super. So with the super PRC nerf, he really struggles at escaping pressure. Now, he is quite good at mashing to escape pressure because his 2P is pretty big, and his 2P is easily confirmable into a knockdown. But that isn't always the best way to get out of offense. So having one main good way of getting out of pressure, which is mashing either 2P or 6P, is definitely a struggle for defense. Then we have Bridget. Bridget is a mid-range backdashing zoner. She has huge buttons like her far slash and heavy slash buttons, but even big punches because of her yo-yo. Like Testament, she's very good at acting quickly, so her kicks are fast. You have to act quickly to deal with her yo-yo in general. Her backdash is in the fastest tier, and her pokes are pretty fast too. She has uniquely good defense, so her 2K is a crouching 5-frame, and she also has a DP, along with a fast unreactable backdash, to make offense against her kind of difficult. The buff to her roll so that she can steer it up and down makes her knockdown situation especially oppressive. A high-low situation that you can't backdash, but unlike typical high-low situation, the low also has good reward and is loopable. So her mix-up is quite good, but her offense at a baseline is quite good too. She has blue wall assault to set up the yo-yo into an RPS into 50-50s. Or she can push herself out to try to make it difficult for the opponent to take their turn back. So Bridget is kind of unique because on paper she has everything. She has a ton of good tools. Her main weakness is the same as last patch in that her damage output and defense are both pretty low. While I did mention the risk change at the beginning of the video, the previous big Season 4 patch, the launch Season 4 patch, also aimed to reduce the damage in the game. But they did it by increasing everyone's health. Along with that change, they did up the damage on a couple of moves from all characters. So for example, on Johnny's Ensenga, on Baiken's 6H and JD, etc. But Bridget never really got any of those changes. That is until this patch where they buffed charge rolling damage. It is a nice change, but overall her damage is still on the lower side of the cast. So I think this just makes Bridget kind of rough to play, because it encourages a lot of characters to just try to stat check you with damage, because they all have more HP and they do more damage than you. And then if they're wrong, they're probably not taking that much damage. They are going to get put into mix-up hell for a while, but they can still try something to wiggle their way out along with system mechanics. This is also a character that has to fight her way out of the corner, because once you're outside of her kick and punch range, she doesn't really have special movement. She has pretty standard movement unless the yo-yo is already out on the screen. We follow Bridget with Elphelt Valentine. Elphelt is also a mid-range character, but she is a rushdown character. So she has pretty big buttons actually, along with a projectile with some light tracking, depending on how you fire it. Along with this, she has a grenade. And this move makes her jump over pokes, so it's quite strong and is quite advantageous on block as well. She can use this against knocked down opponents for even more frame advantage. Her signature move in this game is Chain Lollipop, and this move on block enables powerful high and low mix-ups that she can either make safe by ending a shotgun shot, or she can double down by going for another mix-up to end the sequence. Needless to say, when Elphelt has meter, Chain Lollipop is an incredibly powerful mix-up tool, giving her additional mix-ups along with meter refund and low meter penalty. Her reward on hit is quite high between counter hit reversions with great return, more knockdowns into shotgun, knockdowns into grenade offense, and having 2k2d into red wall assault to cash out. On a wall break, this character becomes a snowballing mix machine, using her bombas to give her a chance to do left rights, strike throws, or multiple high-low attempts, along with the benefit of having positive bonus. Now, all the offense in the world is amazing, but this character is not without flaws. So for starters, this character is a big loser in the red wall assault nerf. Her special moves are not the fastest, so being able to do things like 2k2d into red wall assault into further offense on block really helped her in some situations, and it made her high-low far more threatening. Out of the rushdown high-low characters on block, Elphelt does struggle with some defensive options as she has to call them out a little bit harder. For example, the main thing she does to dodge counterattacks does lose to meatless reversals. And the grenade is really important here because it beats 6Ps in some cases. And Elphelt really wants this because her Rekka loses to 6P. Her 2H, which also beats 6P, is -4 on block. So there are characters that can punish this into advantageous situations if she chooses not to cancel it. And in the case she does cancel and chain Polypop, it usually trades favorably. With Red Water Salt not on the table, she doesn't have a safe hedge in these situations anymore. Her defense is also kind of mid in my opinion. She does have a 4-frame 2P, which is quite good, but she does have a dizzy situation of it's kind of hard to convert in a lot of situations. She also has a slow super too, so she's definitely caught in the super PRC spray, and she has an average backdash. Overall, her rushdown still is amazing despite the nerf to Red Wall Assault, as she does force the opponent to make choices, and she gets good reward when she's correct. But it's a lot more committal than any other version of Season 4, which means she has to take more risk before she starts getting meter to snowball games. Next is Giovanna. Giovanna is also a mid-range fundamentals type character with a major emphasis on whip punishing, strike throw, and conditioning. She's very fast, she has a step dash, and this dash actually improves as she gets more meter. This improvement also applies to her defense and her damage. She even applies chip damage on her normals as she has more meter. Once she's in, she has a more advantageous on block close slash, powerful spacing traps, and her new move, Chavid, that helps condition the opponent to sit there so she can build meter and engage in her strike throw game. Her speed and whip punish game are so good that it can feel like you can't repress buttons at all. Like, for real. For defense, she has a fast standing jab at 4 frames, but with kind of meh conversion ability depending on the situation, along with a slightly above average backdash. She also has Ventania, a super that is fast and is multiple hits. Her jump is low, but her dash is top class, so when she wants to get out of the corner, she can soar out of the corner easily. Like Bridget, it can kind of be difficult to identify what is the actual problem with Geo. And a player's opinion on Geo is probably a pretty good reflection of how good they are at the game in general. The reason why high-level players rate Geo so low basically comes down to how she wins games and how other characters win games. As Geo is a strike throw based character, she does have to leave room for the opponent to engage in RPS. And against a lot of stronger characters, if they take a standard turn, like after 214k, or they take a big guess on something like dash 5k, it can put Geo in a big disadvantage and potentially a straight up losing situation. This then encourages Geo to take a risk she might not otherwise do because of the threat of how bad situations could be if the opponent takes that risk. Now, doing something like throwing Geo's 5k from neutral can be pretty difficult to do, but a well-trained player against Geo can do it, and you will see it in tournament matches quite often. Besides this issue, I think Geo is a very well-rounded character, and that with skill, she can beat pretty much any character. Then we have Soul Badguy. The protagonist of Guilty Gear, Soul is a mid-range fundamentals type character with an emphasis on running at you, good strike throw, and also conditioning. Unlike Geo, he is not very fast at all, but he uniquely has a far slash that is plus. He has a lot of unusual neutral tools in general with special properties despite being considered a Shoto. For example, his low profile 2D, or his other much more unsafe low profile Night Raid Vortex, or his anti-anti-air Bandit Bringer. He has also had historically amazing defense in the game. His 5k has been nerfed to 5 frames like his Exert counterpart, but he still has a meterless reversal in Volcanic Viper, a fast 9 frame super in Tyrant Rave, and a fast 5 frame crouching normal. In typical LK video history, I am going to make up a soul combo that is probably not optimal just to show that his damage is pretty high, especially when he gets good hits. And with his close slash also having more frame advantage than normal, once he's in, he's in. Soul took significant nerfs from the system changes. So he has Red Water Assault, so this nerfs both his mix-up situations on block. On a hit, you can use Red Wall Assault to break the wall, but should the opponent block this, then he's stuck at -3. This also makes his 6p weaker on block because he doesn't have the best cancel options available. This also serves to lower his meter gain because previously he could push his turn a bit with a few plus on block normals, then threaten you with 5H. This move is -5 on block, so usually people can't punish it. And he can use Red Wall Assault to get back in, and then start the sequence again, bring him closer to his inevitable 50-50 high-low mix-up with Bandit Revolver. He's also one of the most obvious examples of being nerfed by Risk, as he was very well known for pushing his turn with Close Slash and Force Slash. In fact, the devs used Soul as one of the examples of how damage was lowered because of the change to Risk. Finally, the trade-off of him having an advantage Force Slash is that his general neutral game is a bit weak. Once he's close, he's really good, but from further ranges, even though his Force Slash is much faster than other characters, it gets easily stuffed. And his 5k is not really an applicable poke, this is like an anti-air, and his 2k, while fast, is quite small. Now combine this with no Red Wall Assault cancel on block, and it makes it hard for him to preempt from afar to get up close. This makes approaching in neutral a much more patient affair of dashing and blocking, or dash and jump. After Soul, we have his not son, Sin. This is Kai's son. I will admit, this is probably a hot take for this character, but I do think he actually is pretty good. Sin is also a mid-range fundamental type character with an emphasis on big pokes, strike throw, and of course, conditioning. He also is not that fast, but he has much more effective range with normals and special moves than Soul does. His Far Slash is quite huge, and so is 2S, even though it's not as big, but it's a lot safer. He also has Beak Driver to poke with. He has Elk Hunt, which is an advancing low profile that you can also make advantageous with the follow-up. He has really good conversion ability because of this special move follow-up mechanic, as you can both do a special move follow-up and then dash cancel the follow-up to extend your combo. So you can use this follow-up to either space trap your opponent or strike throw them with the advantage you have on Guard Crush. Sin's damage output is actually quite high in this game, and even when he doesn't have stamina, he can use Red Wild Assault to push combos. One unique thing about his meter spend is that his Rider Lightning can basically break from anywhere on screen, especially if you have 100 meter. He also has a good strike throw game, but not just because of the Guard Crush that he has, but also because he has Hoof Stomp, which puts him airborne and is also a fast overhead. On defense, he would appear to be somewhat average, but for starters, he has a massive DP, and because of the follow-up, he can actually follow it up for offense. Usually if you have a tactic, if that's supposed to beat DP, you need to actually check it on Sin. Now, I also think Sin is a victim of the system nerfs. Earlier in the video, I used him as an example of Red Wall Assault being used to cycle resources. I think he is the poster boy for this in the game overall. There are other characters that do it too, of course, but it was critical to his plan. His stamina cooldown was actually very, very, very long, and his throw has a very short animation, probably on purpose too. So Sin players would use Red Wall Assault to help stall this out previously. He is very good at boxing people in the corner too, with his big normals and big special moves, so the risk change also affects him quite a bit. But then he also got nerfed, and the biggest nerf to him is actually that he can't combo up Elk Hunt normally anymore. I think these changes make him less oppressive while still being a good character. Now, to close off this tier, we're going to go to my main, Baiken. Baiken is also a mid-range defensive type character who is unusually good all around. She has decent neutral with a top class Far Slash and a great mid-range tool in H Kabari, along with being able to stall with Heidi back to Tamigaishi. Her damage output has always been pretty good in this game, and she has good mix-ups. She used to be really slow on top of her floaty jump, but they upped her ground speed a couple patches ago, so she's about the same speed as Soul. The main unique thing about her in neutral is how active her main tools are, so her Far Slash, 2H, H Kabari, and Tatami are all really active attacks. Once she has meter, she can spend it on powerful mix-ups that she can do on block, and her knockdown mix-ups are incredibly good, a bunch of tricky left rights and high lows. Her unique mechanic is tether, and having the tether on the opponent can greatly increase the reward on basically all of her attacks. It could even introduce some new punishes that are not available normally. But the opponent can also take advantage of this. When the rope is on the opponent, she has a combo throw available as well, giving it some extra threat. Her defense is pretty good too. She has a standing 4-frame normal to punish with, and a 6-frame 2k that's pretty big and really active. In the case the opponent is far, her far slash is big and fast. And she has a meterless reversal, Hiragi, a parry, that also doubles as a guard cancel attack. Now, Baiken has 3 main problems, and these 3 things are the things that have been keeping her back since Season 3. For starters, combo inconsistencies. And I know some of you watching this are going to say that I'm complaining, but whatever your character might have as a problem with combos, Baiken has that times 10. And in some cases, there are some character player bases who complain about inconsistency sometimes, like Slayer players, who, frankly, if you played Baiken, you would lose your mind with how inconsistent and jank some of her combos can be. Despite buffs to Far Slash and 5H, she often has situations that she straight up cannot convert. Other characters who might not be able to convert something either have a special move to follow up with, or Red Wild Assault to make up for this. This adds up far more than you might think in matches, but it's not the biggest deal. Not alone, anyways. What it does do is that it makes it so a very common theme in matchups is that the opponent intrinsically out-rewards her because they have more hits that they can convert than she does. For example, 3 straight far slashes does not exactly equal Axl hitting you into far slash into push you full screen with Rensen. A lot of characters in this game still have like strong projectile strategies or reworked offense that is a projectile. So it could be hard to use defensive tactics against them. For example, you could take Potemkin having guard and impact change to a projectile, or how Baiken can't use tatami mats against HG's gun, but Potemkin can flick HG's gun no problem. Her strongest defensive tactics can actually be pretty difficult to use, and you really see it by playing Baiken players. Like, her guard cancel is actually very infrequently used. And though she has a good standing 5p that's very fast, not only does it not convert in a lot of situations, but you also have to choose to do it by standing, which makes it slower than the crouching 4-frame options, along with it being less rewarding. So most of the time when you're fighting an opposing Baiken, you're generally not fighting what she can actually do because it's really inaccessible to players, or she just doesn't get to convert enough into situations that allow her to go into advantageous situations. Once she gets the meter, she's a very powerful character, and if you are very studied on the game, she is an extremely strong character defensively, but it just takes a lot. I think it's just not accessible, nor is it good against the best characters on top of that, so you can't even use a lot of the tools that they give her against the best characters in the game. Next, we move to the top 8 rank. This rank has characters with powerful game plans. They still do have weaknesses, however. Their game plans range from consistent and stable to quite polarizing actually, and very overwhelming when they actually get going. Like I mentioned with top 16, this is the other rank that I think is the ideal balance for the game. We start this rank with Unika, and she's one of the newest additions to the game. Unika is a mid-range character with an emphasis on strike throw and conditioning. She has a bunch of very good advantages, so for starters, it is extremely easy for her to convert hits. Her normal attacks are huge, and they have follow-ups, and the follow-ups are dash cancelable, so she can convert into hard knockdowns very easily. She has a large far slash and a large 5H. She is incredible at keeping people cornered because of this. And she has a tricky conditioning plus reaction check game around her special moves, where she can either take the safe -3, go for a cheesy overhead, choose to reset the situation, or use her laser to get a big frame advantage. If she does use a heavy normal, if she follows up with the H follow-up, she can get back into her ideal range and continue her offense. Her damage output is quite high, and her defense is quite good between her having a 2k 2D into Red Wild Assault, having a grounded backdash, which makes her backdash BRC very good, and, like Sin, a massive DP. She does have a couple of weaknesses, however. So, she's kind of slow in neutral. Now, this somewhat doesn't matter because she's able to attack from all ranges. She has a laser that hits full screen as well, on top of her jump D, and her air laser, and her jump D with a follow-up. She can really struggle against characters with good high or floaty jumps. And finally, while her offense is good, it can be vulnerable to fast, low profiles like DLC 2Ks. Overall, Unika is a straightforward character that's really good at building meter and can get hits into big damage. You follow Unika with a Goldlewis. So Goldlewis is a big body bruiser with good mid-range, good mix-ups, and a surprising amount of neutral control. He has very good counter pokes like 5k, 2s. He can use his security meter, which he gains passively, in order to both beat Zone with his minigun, which he can also manually control, and his drone to take space and corner his opponent. With tension, he can use Burn It Down, a laser that drags the opponent to him after a little bit. Kind of the opposite of Potemkin's Gigantokai in a way. Finally, he has Behemoth Typhoon, which is his signature special move, and he can use this as a poke in neutral, as an anti-air, for a block string offense, and for mix-ups. He can also spend security meter on this resource for offense and combos. I think the main thing about Goldlewis that's a big surprise is how mobile he actually is despite being a big body character. Once he corners you, it can be pretty difficult to escape, and he has very consistent conversion ability, good mix-ups on block and from knockdowns, and a lot of HP to take damage. He does have White Wall Assault, which was nerfed, but he doesn't need it too much anyway besides specific matchups. I think his biggest advantage actually is how persistent he can feel in a round unless your character has a significant advantage over him. I do think though the nerfs are pretty significant and this is his weakest version in a while. For starters, they nerfed his jump D, which was honestly a pretty broken jump in for years, so that it's less active. The disjoint on it is also nerfed, so it is far easier to anti-air him than before, and this also makes his approach a lot weaker. They also made it so Air Behemoth Typhoon is a soft knockdown, so he can still convert consistently off his jump-ins, but he gets less straight-up guaranteed offense on hits. He also is a big victim of Super PRC being nerfed because he had a slightly slower than average super. This super, down with the system. He actually got whacked by another system change that I actually did not mention in this video yet, which is the change to Guard Crush, because formerly Guard Crush you just had to take, but in this patch you can now YRC Guard Crushes. Having this option gives yet another option to escape his pressure. I find all of these changes turn him into far more of a counter poker than before, unless he navigates neutral in a way where his opponent is just in a bad spot, or of course he corners them. I also feel like it makes his actual weakness stand out a lot more, which is, like many other big characters in this game, he does not have a double jump, so between that and having stubby normals for mashing, he is not that great at getting out of the corner. We now have another big body character to talk about, Nagoriyuki. This character has surprisingly good neutral control with big normals and special moves, good pressure and positioning, and excellent threat on block with his command grab. He has some top class normals like his kicks and 2s, and great special moves to approach like his clone that he can follow up with a step or Beyblade. Now the more special moves he uses, the bigger and faster his normals get. Take his 5H hitting from about here or even here when he has 2 full stocks of blood, as opposed to when he starts around where there's no way it would go that far. If he uses too much special moves, he will activate Blood Rage. And in this mode, he takes damage to himself and his normals are even more massive than before, as well as getting access to a new super, Zantetsu, which instantly brings his HP to 1. As the game has gone on, Blood Rage has seen more and more use and has gotten buffed, and in Season 4 he can use it to set up a 50-50 or just to do a massive cash out into breaking the wall. Similarly to Goldlewis, it could be surprising how mobile Nago can actually be despite his backdash being slow and his jump being slow and not having a double jump and having a slower super jump. Beyblade lunges at you instantly, and Clone is quite fast, though you can see it coming from a distance. Fukyo is cancelable too, so in the case you don't check it fast enough, you can get knocked down or even comboed. He also has White Wall Assault, which kind of sees more use than Goldlewis because he doesn't have like passive moves like Drone or something to cover his approach. Once Nago corners an opponent, his pressure can be suffocating and it can be difficult to escape from his spacing traps. Nago is also quite good at converting, and his combos are pretty good at breaking the wall or pushing the opponent to the corner. This character has long been a high performing character in this game, and over time ArcSys has tweaked him to give him some pretty meaningful weaknesses. There's two I really want to touch on. So first, compared to before, he's not really good at like hitting you compared to before. Previously, Beyblade was one of the best approach tools in the game because it was a low. So you couldn't walk away from this move without him hitting you in the legs and then getting a combo. As a mid attack, it's still an excellent approach tool, but you're just getting way less hits than you were previously. His mix-up game is weaker now than it was in previous versions as well. And this is more a testament to how good he was before as opposed to, he's not good now. If he hits a grab, it's less of a sequence around multiple high-lows as the low is no longer a low and the high is delayed. And now it's more a sequence of strike throws that are tricky for the opponent to deal with. The nerf to his high-low mix-up also makes it harder for him to close rounds in this way. With his H buttons being nerfed so he can't cancel them, he is particularly weak to single jumps, especially his 2H. Blocking 2H airborne often leaves the opponent at an advantage, and it makes anti-airing more difficult than it was before. Finally, like Goldlewis, defense can be kind of hard, so even though when he gets out, he does have high reward pretty often, he does not have an air dash, nor does he have a double jump, and his super jump is very slow, so he often has to fight his way out of the corner. I would say this version of Nago has more defined strengths and weaknesses rather than seeming to have just some random thing that just helps with a flaw that he has. Also, unlike the other big bodies, Nago's HP is actually variable based on his current amount of blood that he has. So he doesn't even have the advantage of being able to take a lot of hits like the other big bodies. Next, we have another high performing character and longtime Guilty Gear veteran character, Johnny. The game defines him as a zoner because he could play from mid-range and further quite easily. He has huge normals, and his signature move, Misfiner, is also massive and very difficult to punish. Like Exerd, this attack rips through projectiles, and this makes Johnny's neutral effective both versus standard characters where he has really big buttons to fight with, and against zoners because he has Misfiner, along with his slippery jump and fast dash. Johnny commands a strong offensive presence. His Misfiner alters frame data, so the heavy attacks he uses from outside his opponent's range go from very clearly unsafe to much closer to even. He can use this space to either throw a card, attack again, or wait for the opponent to try to counterattack. His knockdown is especially threatening because when he cuts a card with Misfiner, it is an automatic follow-up that is heavily advantageous with a guard crush. His air Misfiners are all overhead. And yes, this includes the one that goes upward like this. So you can do a high-low and then use the advantage from the card to keep up your offense. This also doubles as an excellent way of building tension because you get guaranteed offense along with Misfiner cancels, so Johnny's corner presence is quite powerful. This character won EVO on the previous patch, and he was in discussion for the best character in the game, although we discovered another character was actually the best character in the game by a good margin. He got a slew of changes plus system nerfs that affected his power level. So for starters, the wrist change affects him a lot because he would do this like kind of favorable RPS situation around Misfiner pressure. If the opponent held, that means much more meter build and much more risk build for him. This character is also a red Wild Assault character, so players would often, from around mid-range, dial something and go into red Wild Assault so they could start offense. The nerf to 5H pushback would have made this harder to do anyway, but combined with the red Wild Assault not being able to be cancelled, and it nerfs his meter gain, along with giving him less opportunities to push offense and mix-ups. It also frankly enabled kind of lazy hit confirmation, and now there are situations, although rare, where the red Wild Assault can actually whiff, and Johnny this version is really encouraged to do single hit confirms. And don't get it twisted, it's not that hard if you use S Misfiner, but it does still take a little bit of practice. Like Goldlewis, the guard crush from turn up was actually a huge part of his pressure, so being able to YRC that as an interaction point that was not there previously. This isn't a huge deal. In my opinion, it's just something that exists, that's something additional he has to think about, because before, he didn't have to think about it. The character's movement speed was also nerfed, so His movement speed was top class because his dash was buffed to 15 frames, and it is still invisible, it just does not travel as far as it used to. This can affect his offense sometimes, as he might not be able to get to the spot that he needs to in order to continue offense safely. His backdash was also nerfed from 18 frames total to 22 total, and in exchange, he goes further than before. So this means that he resets to neutral more often, and in previous versions, what they would often do is, not only is the 18 frame backdash basically not reactable, but they would do it and then mash right away. And because of the distance, he would be able to convert this backdash into mash far slash into meaningful threatening offense, where now it's just much less likely that he's able to do that. Continuing with defense, he's also a victim of the super PRC nerf, as this move is a slower than average super, so he was able to do it pretty easily. And often you're doing super PRC into throw, and his throw leads into mix-ups because you can throw into a card. So this was a very powerful defensive tool for him as well. On offense, his vault was nerfed so that he throws the card later. This makes it both easier to 6p, but also makes it difficult for him to do some of his old pressure structures off the attack. To be honest though, with vault, at this point people use it so little that when someone does do it, people don't often actually 6p it anyway because they're not used to seeing the move anymore. Finally, his 5H was both buffed and nerfed, so it has more pushback, which I talked about plenty of how it can make red wall assault with, and it hurts his hit confirms, but the trade-off is it actually makes it easier for him to throw cards off buttons, which is something that people did but not too much, where now it's a much more consistent strategy against more characters. All these nerfs make it so that he cannot convert into offense as easily from as many situations. And the defense points are important too, because he still has his old defense weaknesses. Primarily how he can't dash block, and his reliance on a lot of mid-hitting attacks, making him vulnerable to low profiles. He generally has to fight his way out of the corner or try to use his admittedly very good jump. That being said, I do think his game plan is still incredibly strong, and I think the people who say he's dumpstered are just too used to him being a broken character, frankly. The next character we're going to discuss is Axl Low. Axl is a mid to long range zoner with excellent pokes and surprisingly good close range attacks as well. He uses his chains to control space, making him hard to control, but he can also use longer pokes like Rensen, and this move easily stops projectiles. His design is pretty straightforward with clear strengths and weaknesses. His obvious strength is his range, and this also means where Axl players think offense happens is different than other characters, which can make it tricky to decide what to do where in some matchups. If you do have problems approaching him, then he builds a ton of meter as he continues to swing at you from a safe range. His 214H has been buffed to be a hard knockdown. And while he doesn't get much in the way of mix-ups here, it again helps him build meter, which he can use to improve his strike throw game, go for mix-ups, or cash out with his time stop super 1 vision. His biggest improvement this patch outside of the hard knockdown is the overall increase to his damage. He doesn't care too much about the red wild assault change because he could build meter at his own pace, and they weren't really trying to get back in on offense anyway. And his conversion ability has always been pretty good, and it's something that Arxis has been buffing since launch. 6k being a tumble creates situations where the return for getting hits is way higher than before, and this doesn't really just apply to pokes because realistically you're not going to be running at somebody and doing 2k 6k, but also applies to punishes as well. His typical weakness is how vulnerable whiffing chains actually leaves him, and this makes him pretty vulnerable to fast characters. This can apply to zoners too in some cases, as these are characters that can quickly do things outside of his zoning range. His life total is low, so he gets deleted when you actually hit him. And like many characters I've discussed, he is also a victim of the super PRC nerf as he has a slow super. I am reasonably certain that this is his best version in GGST so far, and he's overall more threatening than he was before. The last character in this group is Kiske. I keep getting corrected on this. I want to say Kiske so bad, but apparently it's Kiske, apparently. Kai is the poster boy Shoto of the game, and all-around good character, and he's good at attacking from any range. He uses his fast sword pokes in mid-range to approach and to whip punish, and uses his signature special move Stun Edge to control this space from further. Despite his range, he's also quite fast, and he's able to attack at a lot of different angles between a great jump in with JH, an air stalling move with JD, a powerful air versus air in JS, along with a great 6P. He also has top class kicks in my opinion, and of course his far slash. On defense he has a meterless reversal, Vapor Thrust. This move is a crumb slower than other reversals in the game, but it's still there. And he combines this with other standard tools like a 5-frame mash and a normal backdash. When he makes characters block electric attacks, they get put into shock state, upgrading his special moves. This gives him things like better projectiles with more hit stops so that he can do more offense, and also gives him better combos out of the heavy version of Vapor Thrust. In case he's behind, he can also activate Dragon Install. This super greatly increases his speed as well as improving all of his special moves, and can even be made guaranteed on block. Well, against all characters except for one, of course. Kai isn't a technical character, but he has something for every situation, making him the definition of an all-rounder. Surprisingly, in my opinion, he isn't that affected by the red Wild Assault nerfs. Probably the type of player that was nerfed the hardest by it, or players that relied on dialing it in situations where they were unsure whether or not his 5H would whiff after far slash. Like many other characters, I think he is affected by the risk changes, but not so much that it's a big standout, or at least I haven't talked to any Kai players to have mentioned it specifically as a complaint about him this patch. Kai on paper got a huge suite of buffs actually. For example, the buff to his 2S that makes it bigger than before. Or Stun Dipper being buffed to be a hard knockdown now if it's in shock state. To be honest, I don't think Kai particularly has a big weakness to point out. A lot of other characters have these big, clear, defined, advantageous situations on them. So like Johnny with a card on you, or Elphelt making you block Chain Lollipop or doing the Bomb Vest to you. Kai is more like Geo. He does generally well in a lot of situations. They're just characters that are just straight up better than him, or straight up can access their good situations more often than him, and enforce these things in a way scarier way, and I think that's basically the main reason why I don't rank him higher. Next up are the winning characters. You can essentially say from here, we are in meta territory. You wouldn't be surprised to see any of these characters in top 8s, any of these characters winning regionals, or any bigger tournaments. And first, we must start with Slayer. Slayer is a mid-range, bruiser style character, and despite how simple he seems at a glance, he has many unique aspects to his game plan. For starters, he has a unique dash that can go through opponents on offense. His backdash can be followed up with a special move that he could use in defense or in neutral to trip up an opponent. Like Soul, his far slash is advantageous on block. He also has Dandy Step, which he could use to either weave away from opponents or weave through opponents. Despite his slow movement speed, he can be explosive with all these options, along with Mappa Hunch, a rush punch he uses to approach or reposition. Zoning or defensive tactics can be pretty rough for him, but like Johnny, his dash jump travels quite far. He also tried to use Mappa Hunch to try to sneak in on a retreating opponent. If he has meter, he could even use Super Mappa Hunch and stop any zoning before the opponent can cancel and be safe. Up close, along with the big advantage of his far slash, he also has a more advantageous close slash along with a command grab. This command grab upgrades all his hits to a special counter hit called Universe that gives him access to combos he would not normally have off these starters. Dandy Step also shines here, both for evading counterattacks, but also for sneaking a really tricky high or low attack. His damage in general is also just out of control. Not just with normal combos that tend to do a lot of damage, but also with Pile Bunker, a long time special move of his. He can loop it in this game too by hitting with the back hitbox of it, making it a core part of his combos in GGST. This is another character who is technically nerfed by Risk, but he does so much damage that it doesn't really matter in the long run. He did receive a nerf to his 2H, so it knocks back further on counter hit, but he also got a buff to his punches that increased the attack level on it, so he's able to actually match on defense into a really good knockdown. Slayer's damage and explosiveness in neutral help him fight matchups that might otherwise be losing for sure. You can argue his weakness is defense, which is somewhat true, but his standing backdash plus Hand of Doom plus meter give him some good outs, despite not being able to dash block. Truly a character that is good at being patient, or a character that is good at avoiding normals for some reason, is his biggest problem, as the main thing about his neutral is that it could be kind of linear. Then we have Abba. If you watch other tier lists made by me, a standout thing about this one is that Abba is actually ranked and is not in a tier alone. That's because in previous versions of the game, she was primarily used as a powerful counterpick character. To me, she feels different this time around. Abba is a mode change character, so she starts in normal mode with limited movement, attacks with more recovery, and a weaker dash. She can change into Jealousy Rage mode, which buffs, well, everything. Movements, pokes, car jump, along with special moves like Danzai, and this move can armor so much stuff. All of this is based on her unique resource, the Jealousy Meter. She starts with half, and it's under 25% for any reason. She cannot get jealous enough to, like, rage or something. The two modes weave together pretty well in the hands of a strong Abba player. She can build Jealous Rage meter by using key attacks on hit or block, and in Jealous Rage she can wall break off pretty much everything as long as you have enough time on the clock. Once she breaks the wall, things really get out of control as she gets the passive meter gain buffs from positive, plus generally comboing in a way that refunds her jealousy meter. She has good offense in both modes. In normal mode, she can reliably build meter with her plus on block key grab. And in Jealous Rage, she has great frame data, equally good spacing drops, and powerful high-low and strike-throw setups. She can use Blue Wild Assault to quickly transform to mix up her options as well. She also has high HP, a fast, easy to confirm 4-frame 2P, along with the best backdash in the game in Jealous Rage. Abba is here mostly in part due to system nerfs and weaker characters in general. The Red Wild Assault nerfs greatly benefit her because players can no longer use Red Wild Assault to stall out Jealousy Rage. Blue Wild Assault can do this too, but it can be thrown or backdashed. While she doesn't like the risk change necessarily, this is another character with great conversions and pretty high damage, so she doesn't care that much. She also wasn't a really big super PRC user, as her super instantly switches her into Jealousy Rage mode, which she would much prefer. Her main weakness is her reliance on her gauge, and she doesn't really have a way to passively get this meter back. She has to either hit you somehow, or tank a hit with her parry, which is not frame 1. So someone who's skilled against Abba will try to use their burst in order to deny Jealousy Rage for the rest of the round once the Abba player actually starts using it. That being said though, she still has a ton of HP, and she will get meter over time as she tries to get back in and get that resource back. After Abba is Asuka, a character who's been all over the tier list in this game. Asuka is a unique character that has many spells in 4 slots on P, K, S, and H, and these appear like cards on a hand like in a TCG. And he also has 3 sets of spells for all-around use, mix-up, and special effects. While his skill floor is pretty high, there are a ton of advantages to playing him. For example, he does a ton of special moves, so he builds meter very quickly. And he's amazing at keeping advantage, and is amazing at using all of the burst mechanics, both offensive and defensive burst, Deflect Shield, and Wild Assault. When his Mana Shield is up, he has the highest HP in the game, but when it is broken, you can probably kill him in one hit, since the main way most Asuka players recover mana is by spending his own HP. Asuka's current placement is a combination of nerfs to other characters, along with a different style of playing him than before, plus a couple of buffs that really benefit his game plan. He really benefits from Red Wild Assault being nerfed, as it opened up other characters' block string and helped them build meter, which they could use against him to try to break his mana shield. His defense ranges from situationally good to kind of bad, depending on what cards he has in his hands. So, less powerful offense with nerfed Red Wild Assault benefits him a lot. Other characters getting nerfed, of course, helps him too. The developers really tried to buff Test Case 2 to encourage people to use it more, because that set of spells is the one that is used the least by Asuka players. But the current strategy that a lot of the top Asuka players are using right now involve a buff to his Bookmark Super, a utility super that lets him search for specific cells that he wants. In Season 4, they gave him the ability to actually switch the deck that he can search from, encouraging him to use combinations from all 3 decks. but this costs a ton of mana, making it difficult to use. In this version, they reduced how much mana he spends during this. So there is a unique search that they do where they go for spells in test case 3 that have auto draw and passive mana regeneration combined with test case 1's speed staff in order to loop an offensive situation that chips the opponent out and keeps him meter positive. This is difficult to execute in a match, but if done properly, it is extremely powerful and very uninteractable. He's generally kept down by characters who are good at striking cubes and him at the same time, characters with long range, and fast characters to a point. Following Asuka, we have Ino. Ino is a character who has potent high-low mix-ups built in her block strings because of her special dash that puts her airborne. She has unique movement in spades too, so there is the dash that we mentioned, but she can follow it up too and make it pretty tricky to actually know where she's going to go. She also has a low-profile rushing move, a fast dive, and more. Along with her good mix-up ability, she also has really good conversion ability. And she could also control neutral with her note that she could steer and even stop zoning from afar. Because of the nature of her dash, it is pretty much impossible to block this character consistently. So she doesn't really care too much about the risk change. And while she benefits from the power level of characters being nerfed, she isn't too different compared to her last iteration. Ever since her conversion ability got really juiced in Season 3, Ino's been considered a powerful character globally instead of just in Asia. Her weaknesses usually fall into matchup issues or having like low-ish HP. The low HP doesn't pair that well into how she has to overextend on offense compared to an Elphelt or an Anji. And while any Ino can hit you, a skilled Ino can be really tricky to pin down. Matches snowball incredibly quickly once she breaks the wall, as she has a bunch of movement special moves combined with passive meter gain. Following Ino, we have another rushdown character in Millia. Like Ino, Millia is a character with potent high-low mix-ups, but unlike Ino, they're not naturally built into her block strings. Not in a safe way, at least. She also has unique movement, so she is very, very fast, and she has a high jump combined with 2 short air dashes. She can also double jump into air dash because of this, and she has a fast fall and her anti-air Capel. This makes it pretty difficult to actually pin down Millia. In block string, she's actually quite good at building meter because she naturally does a lot of attacks, especially because of Mirage, a special command dash with a bunch of follow-ups. Her buffed Capel also shines here. It is worse at its original function because it doesn't pop up as much as it used to, so the reward on hit is generally lower when you actually try to anti-air somebody, but the lowered recovery makes it a much better rushdown tool than before. When this character knocks you down, she's incredibly difficult to defend with a combination of tricks, legitimately strong resets, and her 2k2d into H-Disc, which enables a powerful 4-way mix-up unless the opponent is reasonably prepared. Her listed changes are actually quite small, but meaningful. Like other mix-up characters, she received a combo change that affects her quite a bit. A change to S-Disc that makes the opponent not go as far on hit. This makes it much easier for her to wall break off many hits, but can even make stray hits easier to follow up with offense. The Artemis buff does come in handy every now and then, but the change to S-Disc has far more effect on her game plan. She also benefits from previous top tiers being nerfed. Her standard weaknesses are low HP, as she has one of the lowest life totals in the game. She has a wide array of defensive tools actually, like a 4-frame 2P that's pretty easy to hit confirm, a great high jump, a good dash block due to her speed, and an unseeable backdash. But opponents can keep her locked down for a long time if they are prepared for this. Like other rushdown characters, she really aims to snowball characters, especially after breaking the wall, which she is much better at. Next up, we have Mei. Mei is more of a standard mid-range footsie character with a focus on conditioning along with whip punishing. She has some amazing counter pokes, one of the most famous being her 5H, but also her 2S. And she also has great pokes that are really hard to whip punish, like her huge far slash or fast and big 5K. She has surprisingly good mix-ups considering that she's supposed to be a strike throw character. She has an easily accessible left-right off her throw, or she can choose to use her beach ball and follow up offense that way. Depending on the type of knockdown you get, she can also get high lows and left-rights with her use special move. If I had to explain why high-level players constantly say that Mei is really, really good in every version of the game, it's pretty much because of how privileged she always seems to be. So, for example, she's supposed to be this strike throw character, right? And generally, the thing you're scared of is getting hit, not getting thrown. But she has a grab that she can combo off of and is incredibly burst safe. And essentially, you could say that the throw reward is the same as the strike reward, which is very uncommon in this game. Another example comes from High Low. One thing Elphelt players complain about is that the low option is unsafe because her sweep has poor cancel options. And with the nerf to Red Water Assault, this is true. Many characters are usually disadvantaged when they go low. Not so much that they die or like lose for doing it, but they are disadvantaged. In Mei's case though, when she goes low, she is plus on block, which again is very rare in this game. On top of that, when she does go low, the attack is burst safe, so you have to be very careful on how you burst against this character. Like Nago, she has a -1 normal as well. So not only can you not throw this, which most characters, their lights are -2, so you can throw it, so there's usually something they have to do to stop you from doing it. But in the case that you try and she has command grab, you explode. Her normals being hard to whip punish is fine normally, since she would have to use meter to confirm this normally. But since she has Red Wall Assault, she doesn't need meter to convert these gigantic pokes. On top of that, she has quite a lot of HP because she has high guts, and she's super mobile. Fast run speed, fast backdash, and a great jump. To be honest, there are far more random oddities than what I talked about just now that she has, and she just has them for some reason. Now, she is actually affected by the Red Wall Assault nerf though, and that's because unlike a lot of characters, she's not very good at starting pressure with close slash and then doing multiple normals. So like close slash far slash 5AH or close slash far slash 2AH or close slash 2S 2H. Mei's H buttons are actually not that big, so all it takes is one faultless defense and her H buttons can whiff in a lot of situations. She could use Red Wall Assault to make up for this, in addition to using Red Wall Assault off 2k 2D, just as a threat, as 2D is -7. So it does lessen the threat of her pressure and lessen the threat of her pulling back up on offense. Her main weakness really is that she just doesn't have that much pressure full screen in a game where typically the best characters either have this or they can get from point A to point B quite quickly. Besides that, there's not really that much. She's a very good character. Next we have Leo Whitefang. Leo has always been one of the best performing characters in GGST, and he is an all-around type, a charge character specifically specializing in mid-range and also in rushdown and also in defense. Despite being an all-rounder and some people calling him a Shoto, he is actually quite an unusually designed character. For example, he shares the weaknesses that fast characters typically have of not having a disjointed far slash. His heavy slash is also not disjointed. And instead of a run, he has a step dash. He has a command guard point that he could use to tank attacks that are not lows. Now, his defense is amazing because his flash kick is essentially a one button reversal, because you just hold down and once you're charging, you just press up and slash. So this makes it so he can react to things with DP that other characters cannot. Now, his actual buttons are not that good for mashing. Like, this is his 5 frame, and his 2K is big, but it's 7 frames, so it's slow. But because of how actually big the flash kick is, he can threaten a lot of stuff on defense despite his arguably subpar mashing options. His core mechanic is the Brain Hilder stance, which is his back turn, and he has a variety of frame traps and high-low mix-ups that he can do. And in Season 4, they made it so that he can actually slide at you with normals, which changes how he attacks. But this sliding also affects his combos, making it so he doesn't have to use Red Water Assault to wall break in a lot of situations. Despite receiving pretty big nerfs this patch, I do think he's still a very strong character. I had him at the tippy top tier last patch, underneath the GOAT Potemkin, of course, but still overwhelmingly powerful previously. The Risk and Red Wall Assault change both affect him for sure, but the biggest nerfs to Leo was actually nerfs to his kit. One major one was the change so that HGP is now a soft knockdown. This move has been a hard knockdown forever, and it was a great way for him to start his offense because he had time to do Zwite, which sets up his back turn offense. The other big nerf he got was to his back turn H. This move has less block stun now. So he can actually cancel his stance, and when he does that, it changes the frame advantage of his moves, and generally back turn S and back turn H have more frame advantage. But because of the reduction of the frame advantage on back turn H, he can no longer follow up offense after back turn H into unstance. This gives the opponent not only a way to counterattack, but the back turn H is also disadvantaged, so he requires a different structure in order to keep his offense going that the opponent can do something about. He still also keeps his standard weaknesses of being weak to big kicks and then also big fast disjoints, but he does have the tools to deal with these type of things. With these changes, he plays a much more measured neutral before he starts snowballing you in back turn. Now, the final character in this group is Ramlethal Valentine, the character that won the World Tour Finals last year. This is another long-time powerful character, and she is also a mid-range character, but she has a very focused emphasis on strong offense in the corner. Her signature move, Bayonetto, lets her throw a sword, and it has a follow-up, and unlike when the game came out, she can't actually pick it back up. She has to wait a certain amount of time for them to return to her after Season 4. This character received significant nerfs this patch. She has a similar jump H to Baiken, but unlike Baiken, her active frames on her jump H have been greatly reduced. It also has more landing recovery, making it harder to spam. Her air flip kick was the GOAT air stall of the game last patch, and it has more landing recovery in addition to actually being punishable. Whether or not you get a combo is a different story. Her new move from Season 3 is this, Ondo. It used to be plus on block, but now it's -4. So now she has to play more of a space trap game here, as opposed to guaranteed offense. I do think it is quite good at this, however. This character loved Red Wild Assault. Not only does she have 2k 2D Red Wild Assault, but she also had ways to make this burst safe. Her 2D was actually buffed to have more range, which is a complaint Ram players had for a long time, but she still does generally have problems converting kicks. Because of the nerf to Red Wild Assault, hit confirming is not as easy with her as it once was, and requires much more use of her special move, Zato. If the Ram player can do it, it ups her conversion ability by a lot, making her much more threatening mid-screen. With how extended her block string offense could be, she does feel the impact of risk too. And despite having a fast super, she actually feels the impact of super PRC because they started to use it because her defense is actually not that great outside of this super being huge and fast. Ramlethal generally struggles with fast characters and on defense, as her kicks don't have a lot of range, so she usually has to try to slip out of the corner with a jump, a dash block, or she has to try to fight her way out. Despite the system nerfs and nerfs to her though, she's still a very powerful character and honestly a contender for top tier still. Now finally we have the World Champs. In my opinion, these are the best characters in the game. Honestly, it's more of a surprise to not see one of these characters in the finals of a big tournament than anything else, really. We start with Happy Chaos. Happy Chaos is a set play and zoning character with the ability to attack anywhere on the screen thanks to his unique H button, which pulls out a gun and fires bullets with hit scan. He can backdash and shoot, jump and shoot, and even air dash and shoot, and even fire after whiffing normals, much to the chagrin of many high-level players. He can essentially make anything he does very advantageous from anywhere. I personally joke that he starts with 6 Roman cancels. I mean, really, the bullets kind of act like Exert RC pretty much because you can do them from full screen. Jokes aside though, he does have to manage 2 resources. He has the bullets and the concentration meter, which allows him to fire the bullets. Without concentration, he cannot use the H button. It is actually quite a pricey resource, and he can upgrade it using either Focus or a Super Focus. A skilled Happy Chaos player can take advantage of his surprisingly slippery movement. His amazing ability to retreat between his incredible backdash, his great backwalk speed, Curse Toss, which also makes him move backwards, his low profile 2k, and his jump, which he can use jump 2k in order to launch opponents. Actually, Happy Chaos only got nerfs this patch, but his baseline concept is so powerful that when they nerf other top tiers, it generally benefits him. Technically, he has bad defense. His 2p is quite small, but on hit he can get his resource back, on top of being plus, enabling his offense right away. So usually, if he does struggle in a matchup, it usually comes from how quickly characters can address what he does with his gun. He's been top tier since his inception, really, and I think he does deserve that title of Broken Gunslinging Messiah. The next character is a newcomer to this rank, Anji Mito. Anji started from the bottom, now he's here. Would you look at that? Anji is a mid-range character with a strong emphasis on rushdown and then block string mix-ups as well as conditioning. His signature special move, if you haven't guessed, is this move, Fusion, and has multiple follow-ups such as a fast low, a fast overhead, a hop into a projectile that's advantageous, and a hop that puts him back in your face. Fusion itself is also pretty fast, and it combos easily into hard knockdown off pokes. When you block a poke, you generally have to deal with this right away unless the opponent has counterplay. That being said, while Fusion is amazing, his pokes are not the best. Usually they're a bit slow, or they have a lot of recovery on whiff. So he pairs this with another move of his, Suigetsu no Hakobi, and this lets him tank an attack, which can enable punishes. In the case that the opponent does something to keep themselves safe, he can use his new special move from Season 3, Mirare. And this is a guard crush special move that knocks down on hit. This can make neutral against Anji pretty difficult. If you wait for a spin, he can run up and make you block, and then you have to worry about Fusion right away. But if you want to stop him from doing that, he could spin through your attack and then counter. Anji was a character that was really early to getting big combo buffs, and he's gotten a ton of them over the years, including Red Wild Assault. It really was the icing on the cake though, as he is able to hit confirm into knockdowns pretty easily on his own. The main strength of Anji is, like characters like Ino and Elphelt, no matter what you do, no matter what you know about him, he can hit you and it's built into his block strings. And his offense is extremely accessible compared to the other two characters I just mentioned. How he sets up his offense too can vary as well, because he can also put a Suigetsu no Hakobi at the beginning of Fusion by holding the button. Anji actually is a character that suffers from the wrist change because there are times where he can reset pressure quite a bit, but his conversion ability is good enough. And everyone else got affected by this too. Because of how his offense is structured too, he is quite good at building meter as well. He has a very high life pool due to having the highest guts in the game. So he will guaranteed get meter for getting hit, as well as having access to burst often compared to other characters. So unlike Elphelt and Ino, you can't just count on deleting him because you caught him the one time. Also, unlike those characters, his ability to match on defense is pretty good. He has a huge 2P, and it combos very easily into his 6H, which is a soft knockdown. Once he has meter, he has one of the best reversals in the game, Kacho Fugetsu. If you're deep in the community, you've probably heard myself and other training partners of mine just say 30-10 when someone does this move, because that's how long this move is active, and that's how much recovery he has. What I'm saying is, it's actually very difficult to punish this move, as there's only 10 frames of recovery. Now, there is counterplay for this move, for sure. But each version of the game, it feels like they make it harder and harder to actually set up counters for this move that's not just throwing it. The reward for throwing it, of course, is much lower than getting hit by it, unless your character has a good throw. Truthfully, his weakness is that technically he is pretty linear in how he approaches neutral and the game, because everything he does involves kind of setting himself at you. There luckily is no air version of Suigetsu no Hakobi, and Fusion also is a ground special move that lunges at you like Mappa, so a lot of the counterplay to Anji involves stopping him from lunging at you. But also, to be honest, he's such a tank that you have to do these things many times, and most characters do not get good reward for retreating at somebody and hitting them. So you have to hit him many times to actually win a round. And sometimes I feel like Anji players don't realize that they're getting hit a lot, personally. He also benefits from the old top tiers all getting nerfed. We move to Chipp Zanuff. And Chipp is another longtime Guilty Gear veteran, a ninja character who specializes in speed, unique movement, and rushdown. He is the fastest character in the game, but he also has the lowest life total, not counting things like Asuka with no mana shield or Nagoriyuki in Blood Rage. His new special move is Tightrope, and this move lets him use wall run moves on this rope mid-screen, which enables new combos and mix-ups. While he is a character that's good at offense and neutral, he's also very good at defense, so he has a DP, an amazing backdash, a 5-frame crouching normal that's easy to convert, and a 4-frame jab that he could use to punish certain things in the game. In this patch, they buffed his sweep to help him fight low profiles and kicks, which has always been one of his main weaknesses in the game. This, combined with nerfs to other top tiers and nerfs to risk, greatly help Chipp. While he was pretty good at building risk because of how his pressure worked, players of other characters routinely use Chipp as an example of how quickly you could explode a character with risk. His explosive speed actually makes it pretty hard to play normals versus normals against him. And if you're a zoner who needs to set up neutral for any reason, there is no shot you're going to actually get the time. Like Anji, he has long extended pressure strings where you can do something, but if you do it at the wrong time, you will die. His general weakness is his low HP, but he is incredibly good at looping positive because of how far he can break the wall with his punch super. When you're in positive, you get a buff to your damage and defense as well as the passive meter gain, so this kind of makes up for Chipp's low HP. The HP thing is very meaningful though, because there are a ton of characters in this game who do explosive damage despite continuous damage nerfs in this game's lifespan. So he does have to play a measured game or else he explodes. And finally, we end at the same place as we ended in the previous patch with Potemkin. Potemkin is a big body grappler. He doesn't move very quickly, but he has huge normals, special moves that move him in unique ways, armored attacks, and powerful anti-zoning moves. His main mix-up is Strike Throw, and he does this with his self-titled Potemkin Buster, a command grab that does massive damage. Importantly in this game though, it also builds him a ton of tension, and for whatever reason, has armor. The move can be used both defensively and offensively. And he can set the move up liberally by using Guard at Impact, which the character gets off most knockdowns. Guard at Impact is a highly advantageous projectile guard crush, giving him plenty of time to build a little bit more resource before his strike throw, or to try to reset the situation by doing another one. Now, normally a character like Potemkin would get zoned to death, but Potemkin was the original anime grappler that was good against zoning. He has both Slide Head to encourage people to not do projectiles or long range attacks, and Flick to reverse against projectiles as well. Flick counters moves that the game doesn't even necessarily consider to be a projectile, but also does consider to be a projectile. Even conceptual attacks like HC's Bullet can be reversed by Flick. He has huge range with normals, and typically his normals have higher hit stun and block stun than other normals of similar types. Gigantorkai is in contention for best super in the game. It's a slow moving mirror that travels full screen, and it stays up for a long time and goes to the end of the wall and doesn't go off screen. He can use his super to set up more strike throw, in addition to using it as a situational counter poke, along with having powerful combo extensions. Essentially, what makes Potemkin so good is how easily he'd use meter to end games. Potemkin Buster is very high damage. When he has meter, he can either whiff it into another Pop Buster, or in the case the opponent picked jump, he can cancel into Heat Knuckle and do another 50-50. When he spends meter with SRC, Pop Buster's duration is so long that he runs out the meter penalty, so he's very, very efficient at spending meter. He also has a ton of HP, so even if you're beating him, you will definitely give this character 50 meter, and all of this character's best tactics all come from him having meter, which again, he's guaranteed to get. He can use Hammerfall's armor on approach, and then fast RC it into guard at impact and start his strike throw from there. In the case you have some counter to it, he can use Pop Buster and grab whatever it is anyway. If he wants to hedge in a little bit of safer way, he could use Gigantor from here instead and then safely walk you to the corner. Now, this character actually did get quite a few nerfs this patch. Now, Hammerfall's movement speed and duration actually are nerfed, so he cannot go full screen with it anymore. Like many characters, he's actually a victim of the risk change. But again, he does so much damage that it doesn't really matter that much. Heavenly Potemkin Buster was his go-to invul move. He would use Super PRC for this, but now it costs 100, so he gets access to this a lot less. As I mentioned before, however, he will get the meter back better than other characters because of the duration of Potemkin Buster. Slidehead previously had armor, and now it doesn't, which makes it a lot less belligerent than before. Now, his main weakness is that he can be somewhat camped out because he's not fast, and he generally has to fight his way out of the corner, and that's why he has all these frame 5 armors and Mega Fist jumping on frame 3. In the end, though, that stuff is kind of a formality, though, because once he gets 50 meter, like, the game just ends, and if you get hit by accident quickly, then things can really get out of control. He also actually used to have White Wild Assault, which is nerfed, but they gave him Blue Wild Assault in Season 4, so right now, Blue Wild Assault is technically the best Wild Assault in the game, and it is a Guard Crush attack, which means he could do Blue Wild Assault into Guard Impact, and then do his Strike Throw from there. He's weaker than he was for sure, but I still think he's in contention to be considered the best character in the game. Alright, that was a grind. This is the version that basically people will talk about when we talk about Guilty Gear Strive 1, unless they specify like Season 2 or Season 3. The power level of the game is down for sure, and I still feel the great emphasis on character identity a little bit in this patch. But because they went too far with some characters, I feel like it's a little odd. Characters like Sin really stand out as an example. Let me know what you guys think, though. This version was really fun. I'm very much looking forward to Strive 2.0, and we're getting new characters as well as who knows what they're going to do to the cast. Thank you so much for watching. If you ever want Guilty Gear coaching, I coach over on Medify, medify.gg/LordKnight. I do have a Patreon with both free and paid content at patreon.com/LordKnight. I also stream either on YouTube or on Twitch at twitch.tv/LordKnight. And we also record videos for my second channel, LordKnight Chronicles. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.